Let's talk about water. This incredibly mystifying element that encapsulates most of our body and our planet is so important, not just for our survival, but for our optimization as a whole. I'm obsessed with it. Since I was a kid, all I wanted to do was report on Jacques Cousteau and water exploration, and it never really made sense to me why it was so essential for optimization. I just understood it from an environmental standpoint. Our oceans were beautiful to me, and being inside of them has always made me feel a little bit closer towards what seemed like evolutionarily purposeful. I've never felt more me than times where I've taken a dive into the ocean or put my feet into a shoreline in the beautiful waters of Long Island, New York, where I grew up. Now, I don't know if you feel that same sacred sense as I do when you come into contact with it, but certainly you can, just as I can, relate to the fact that it is so essential for our optimization and survival. The average person is supposed to take in half of their body weight in ounces. For example, I weigh about 150 pounds on the average. I tend to fluctuate, but that would mean that I need, math is hard, 75 ounces on average of water per day just to survive. For cross-reference, that's about two and a quarter 32 ounce shaker bottles worth of water just to survive. That seems simple enough to get in, but some people don't even get that much. And it doesn't just stop there. In addition to half of my body weight in ounces, I also need an additional 16 ounces for every hour of activity. That doesn't just count this in the gym. It also means if I went out walking today, especially since it's summertime, or if I just spend time being active, maybe even doing the laundry and folding it and moving it around the house, cleaning, increasing my non-exercise activity thermogenesis. These are things that I'll need to hydrate for. In addition to that, I lose water, and so do you, very frequently. Anytime I sweat, even though I don't sweat very much, I'll be losing not just water, but the trace minerals within it that help my body to maintain homeostasis. So reclaiming the water that I lose is incredibly essential. Oh, and you know how you wake up about 2 pounds lighter every single morning? I wish I could tell you verbatim that that's body fat every single night and that you just happen to reclaim that during the day by choices that you make, because that would be easy to hack. But in fact, that's mostly from sweat that we lose when we sleep. If that's making you reconsider how often you change your sheets and how long you've owned your mattress, it should, because cringy, but that should also lead to the idea that you need to be rehydrating yourself in the morning, and you need to be reclaiming the trace minerals that we lose in sweat as we sleep. So if water is our basis for survival, how does that pertain to our insides, and how does that allow us to function better? Well, water is what helps all of our cellular processes become more efficient. Most of our own body is made out of water, and even things such as the breath are altered by the amount of water intake that we have. You need to moisten, I know, words that we love, your breath every single time you take a breath. Your minerals, if they're soluble in water, are transported by water, so lack of adequate hydration can lead to demineralization or deficiency of minerals, even if you're intaking them. And our body isn't able to release body fat without appropriate hydrogen in order to respirate out the fat cells. So even losing fat, you need adequate water for. It also helps with digestive processes, metabolic processes, cellular function as a whole. It helps with our clarity, our skin health, and autophagy, or cellular turnover. It is absolutely verbatim important. But there's more to it than even just that. So very recently, I've been taking the deep dive, not to be punny, into free diving. I've learned that humans have something called a mammalian dive response, which is the response that our body goes through in trying to acclimate into water. Did you know that we have receptors under our eyes that whenever our face is covered with water, we start to naturally lower our heart rate? So much so that it can decrease up to 10 beats per minute just touching water to our face for up to 2 minutes, as studies have shown. In addition to that, not only does our heart rate lower as we go in the water, but our circulation changes. Most of our circulation will shift towards our important and internal organs and away from our outer extremities to prioritize survival. Most humans also aren't very conditioned to CO2 or carbon dioxide because we're not conditioned to holding our breath. So it helps with regulation of stress response or hyperventilating when we encounter a stress experience by regulating your exposure to carbon dioxide through breath holds underwater. This and these symptoms can be exacerbated and improved upon by cold water immersion, which can take further and more rapid step into the mammalian dive response and trigger those bodily processes at a much greater extent. Your body will also have to thermoregulate, which means it'll have to regulate its temperature to keep itself appropriately warm in the surrounding water, which means that thermoregulation will force your body through hormetic stress not only to burn calories to heat itself up, but also to improve upon all processes so that all systems are a go and you're able to stay alive, survive, and thrive while you're in cold water. There's nothing quite like the clarity that you'll get from not just splashing cold water on your face, which will start to trigger your mammalian response, but also from thermoregulating and feeling your bodily processes as it tries to regulate in water, both by changing the circulatory blood flow that you have, regulating your heart rate and lowering your heart rate, burning calories to thermoregulate, and honestly, regulating your CO2 response, which has shown a link to the oblongata function, which is responsible for the fear center of our brain. Thereby, encountering water, being in water, drinking water, it all ties into optimal survival. Not only will your heart rate lessen, your circulation increase, your threshold for CO2 improve, which means that your oxygenation will improve as well, but your stress response will too. I love those things because it helps me to understand that tying myself into the different elements of the world around me help to balance me, which sounds hippie and woo-woo, but with all that science, how can you argue that this is a real and very important and interesting thing that we can do? So if there's any takeaway I can give you, it is that you should submerge yourself in a body of water at some point this week. Whether that means sticking your head in the bathtub and doing a breath hold, taking a cold shower, plunging yourself into the nearest lake, river, stream, ocean, sea, or whatever body of water you have available to you, or even just drinking an extra cup or two a day. It's a pursuit worth taking and a beautiful one to investigate. I'd highly advise that you guys check out the audiobook or book Deep by James Nestor, which is a beautiful observation of the different known depths of our oceans and how they affect humans and mammals alike, and how humans are able to regulate their breathing and their body temperature and more by exposure to therapies in aquatherapy. Or you can check out the Ben Greenfield Fitness podcast on multitudes of different water sources, from deuterium depleted water, different types of water filtration, and so on, which I can send to you if you'd like to further explore it. But if you have any more questions for me on types of water filtration, ways to fortify your water, different ways to get trace minerals or electrolytes, and how you can even start swimming, breath holds, and so on, I'm more than happy to expose you to it. In this phase, it's so important to me that you start to take in action these different ways to biohack your routine, recover better, and predispose your athleticism to encountering the world around you. Because why not? Why not take your athleticism to that next step? Why not know yourself and know your environment in that next deeper regard? It's worth it to investigate the places that we live and the beautiful world that we live in, because without it, we live not to be, again, honey, but shallow lives. So take a deep dive. It's worth it. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.